Hey, rock stars. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. I got a phone call like 2 minutes before noon that I had to take. And then my little phone tripod thing was not playing nice. So anyway, I'm here. It's a little after 12 o'clock Pacific time. And I missed last week because I was so sick the beginning of the week. And it was all I could do to just get like client work done and keep my head above water. So sorry I wasn't here last week, but I am back this week. And we are going to be talking about repurposing content. So the theme that I've kind of been sticking with, and one of the things that I've really been focusing on this year is working smarter, not harder. Right? You hear that phrase thrown around a lot, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's great. Work smarter, not harder. What does that actually mean? Well, one of the things that I've started implementing in my business is a lot more systems. Systems enable you to not reinvent the wheel every time. Hey, Peter, not reinvent the wheel every time you go to create something or do something. It is essentially creating a checklist for, repetitive things that you do in your business, whether it's writing a blog or graphic design or, like my opt-in course that's rolling out that I gave you guys a preview of a couple weeks ago. Systematizing that process so that I can spend my creative time coming up with a really valuable, engaging opt-in and not worrying about the back end of like, how do I connect this to a form and sign up on my site and emails and what? So it's really been a focus of mine this year, work smarter, not harder. So with that theme, one of the things that I want to talk about today, or the thing that I want to talk about today, is repurposing content. I think I'm going to sneeze. Whew! Live video. Wonderful. So repurposing content, what does that mean? That means that you have been creating content for a while. Kristen, thank you. You've been creating content for a while, whether it's blog posts or videos or webinars or whatever it is. And you want to go back and look at that content and see how else you can use it on other platforms. So maybe you're somebody that's like, yeah, I do quick live videos for, Facebook, or I have some instructional videos on my site. But maybe I need to, I'm really lacking on LinkedIn. I really want to have more of a presence on LinkedIn. Well, then maybe you should look at creating a slide share, like a deck presentation out of what you talked about in your video or your, instructional webinar or whatever it is. So it's that kind of premise of you have a piece of content and how do you break it down into smaller pieces that fit with the platform you'd like to put it on. Another example would be if you have a blog on like top 10, whatever. Then you create 10 graphics that have each tip in them, and you use that in an Instagram post, or you create a video out of each of those images, like a slideshow. So it's really kind of having this rolling list in your head or written down. It doesn't have to be in your head. Ideally, it actually shouldn't be in your head. I do that way too much. But a list of like, here's all the kinds of content that I could create. If I'm doing this bigger piece of content, how can I repurpose it into smaller pieces that fit with other platforms and the kind of content that works well on other platforms? So this is not, I repeat, not the same as reposting the same content on other platforms. You should not do that. An exception would be if you've got a blog post and so you're tweeting out about it and maybe you're sending it to your newsletter and publish it on LinkedIn. I mean, that might be something where you put it out everywhere, but the way in which you put it out is going to be specific for each platform. So that's like reposting, resharing. Again, what I specifically mean by repurposing is you're creating different types of content from one central piece. So, and I'm going to flip that on its head after I'm done talking about it. One of the things that I've seen done, so there's two types of gold mines for being able to do this. One is if you create evergreen content. For example, my free social media email course. That is essentially evergreen content. There's not a lot in there that is super specific as to way platforms work that would need to be updated because they've changed the way something works or what have you. That is something that's a foundational, instructional piece of content that I could repurpose into a book, an ebook. I could repurpose it into a webinar, several other things. It's evergreen. It is contemporary with, what's going on in the online world. And it's not something that really has an expiration date, so to speak. The other type of content that you can repurpose is if you do have something that is more time specific, and where I see this a lot is when there are instructions regarding specific social media platforms. For example, in the group this morning, I posted a Snapchat beginner's guide that was written by Buffer. And if you click through to the article, it says on the top, this is a refresh from whenever it was they published it initially. So we know that social media platforms change all the time, either adding functions, changing functions, whatever. They're always changing. It seems like overnight. I mean, we just had the whole Facebook Messenger day stories thing that's rolling out as we speak, all of that. So look at your old content that is more well, that doesn't really apply anymore, or that's not the way the platform works anymore, or it's missing, this previous blog is missing a big chunk of the way this platform functions now. Apply this to your industry. I'm speaking in social media terms because that's my industry. You could go back and refresh that blog or that piece of content as an update. So evergreen and updates. The easiest way to get started with doing this is to take a look at the blogs, whatever it is, that are more specific towards lists and tips. So you see a lot of 5 essential tips or top 10 tools or, 7, my Pinterest thing was 7 essential steps to get your account Pinterest, business ready, however I titled it. So it makes it really easy when you start with a numbered list to break it down into a series of content. So if you've got top 10 tools for scheduling on social media, I have a blog post. Then maybe I create a slide deck for SlideShare, which is owned by LinkedIn, where, I have an intro slide, and then each slide is one of those tools and how to use it, and then an outro, thanks so much, whatever, and I post that with proper SEO and keywords and everything on SlideShare for LinkedIn. Then maybe I create a square Instagram graphic of each one of those tools, have it numbered 1 through 10. Instagram now allows you to post up to 10 pictures per post, like a gallery. So that could be an Instagram post. Maybe you're on Twitter still, and you do a series of tweets that, top tool number 1, top tool number 2, and it goes through it, and then it links back to your original blog. Maybe you do a webinar or a video where you record yourself essentially reading your blog, and you take the audio out and you make that a podcast. Maybe you put the video on YouTube or Facebook. So you've got this one blog that's top 10 tools for social media, and you could create different pieces of content for, 4, 5, 6 different platforms. And of course, that depends on where your target audience is. So this is a way that you could actually reach new audiences. So if you are, it comes back to posting the way the platform wants you to post. So if you're really not on LinkedIn so much and you concentrate more on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, Maybe starting to create slide decks of each of your blog posts is a way for you to start reaching people on LinkedIn, if that makes sense for you. So there's some other examples of stuff you could do. If you're in an industry that has like solid stats behind it, what like marketing or, marketing's the one that I always think of, but there's a lot of information and research and industry stuff out there where you can grab stats and create either a blog post, or you can create, again, graphic images to tweet out or Instagram. Maybe you do an Instagram story of stats that you think are going to be interesting or valuable, or, really speak to what you're trying to teach your audience. So the other thing that you can do, which is one of the things that I've had really great success at, is, I think I've talked about this before, is you can look at your analytics. If you're a blogger, you create content consistently on your website. You can look at your analytics and figure out what's your most popular content. I did that with mine and realized, hands down, my most popular blog is 9 Things Your Social Media Manager Should Be Doing. So what I did was I walked that blog back from the entirety of all the content, made it really more of like a teaser with a table of contents, and made it into a free ebook as an opt-in for my website traffic. So people were still getting there from Pinterest and, it floating around and everything that I've done to maximize that for my Pinterest account. And they still get, here's the 9 things, but if they want like the whole shebang, they got to sign up to get my free ebook. And then they go through my whole opt-in series, hint, hint, where they get a thank you page where they're asked, invited to join this group, invited to join the free Rockstar Resources library. And I start to introduce myself and invite them to get to know me better. So think about what's your most popular content and how you can repurpose that for something that could be great for an opt-in. So the opposite side of this, I talked about repurposing being about taking a piece of content and breaking it out into smaller chunks that you can then rework visually or for audio or video or whatever. You could also do the opposite. So you could take smaller pieces that you can group together and create a bigger piece of content out of it. So examples for this would be, if you have a series of blog posts, you could turn that into an ebook. If you're going to do a bunch of interviews of people in your field or people that your audience wants to hear from, you could turn that into an online summit and a video series. If you are going to do a bunch of social media images that are a series of images that kind of all fit together, you could create an album or a video to then post on Instagram or Facebook, if that makes sense for you. And then if you have an email series, so I could very easily, my email series that goes along with a free social media email course, I could turn that into an ebook or a PDF guide or a webinar or whatever it is. So it's smaller pieces of content. It's like 5 or 6 emails that come out, and I can group that together. So really, this is about, again, I'm going to go back to work smarter, not harder. You've already created all of this amazing content that hopefully most of it is evergreen, but it might be more instructional and time sensitive as far as how particular platforms work or, whatever that might be in your industry. And figuring out how to maximize and squeeze every bit out of that content that you can in order to reach your audiences and garner some attention. So, hey, Eloise. So I'd love to know if you repurpose content, how you like to do that. If it's you like to turn lists into graphics, or maybe your go-to thing is creating slide decks out of, instructions or tips or lists or whatever it is. And what serves as your main platform for where you share your stuff first before you repurpose it? Is it simply your website? Or do you have a YouTube channel that you do your videos and then you pull out stuff from your videos from there? I'd love to know. So, yeah, it's going to be a short one today, but I wanted to keep with this theme of work smarter, not harder. How can you rework what you already have and build some systems around that so you can concentrate on your zone of genius and being creative and running your business instead of the tedium of content day to day. So, yeah, if you're watching this later, go ahead and if you have any questions or comments or whatever, drop them in and I'll make sure and come back and answer them. And thank you for being here. I will talk to you later, rock stars.